And welcome to this session of Running Free Skills. My name's Denise Erickson, and with Esther Coleman Hawkins, I'm co-founder of Media Mentors Australia. We've got this mission to help creatives create, regardless of what's happening out there. And we can't think of a better way to do it than by sharing skills. So this session is all about money, and how to best put it on screen. And we've asked the hugely experienced Charlotte Wheaton from Good Thing Productions to share her expertise. Here's one that Esther prepared earlier, twice as it happens, because the first record she did disappeared into the internet ether. But thanks to our partner ACMI, we made sure we got this one right.
This session is all about the dreaded budget. How much money do I need? When do I need it? How do I write a budget? And what is a Screen Australia A to Z budget when it's at home anyway? To answer all these questions is the fantastic Charlotte Wheaton. She is from Good Thing Productions. Hi, Charlie.
Hello, Esther. Thank you for having me.
So, do you want to run us through how you ended up as a line producer at Good Thing?
So my background, obviously I'm from the UK originally, and I started, as a lot of people do in the UK, as a researcher coordinator on factual projects, worked my way up through to AP, and then took a bit of a detour and became a line producer, and primarily worked in my day back in the UK. I was working on a lot of British and US co-productions for History Channel, Discovery, Nat Geo, big kind of series stuff, everything from Egypt to the Mongolian Empire to big science shows, all kinds of crazy stuff, lots of sharks, that kind of thing. And I was very lucky that I took this career detour and ended up line producing on a series for PBS about the Crusades, bizarrely. And yeah, so from there I kind of started learning more about production management, and then essentially, because I was editorial as well, sort of became a line producer. So I was across the money and the editorial, and from there I've production exec, how you say it, and sort of done a bit of everything. But having a background in line producing has really helped me sort of straddle a lot of different projects. And then in 2012 I moved here. And obviously very different kind of industry here, less US co-pros, more sort of domestic stuff, but I've done a bit of production management, I've done a bit of line producing. Having kids, I was able to kind of pick up work doing budgeting stuff as well, so it's a good skill to have in your back pocket if you're sort of in between jobs, because people always need budgets. But yeah, so essentially now I'm a producer at Good Thing Productions, so I run the factual slate there. So we do a mixture of feature docs and series. So I develop, I write, I do budgets, I make the tea, I do whatever. But yeah, so that's me.
Fantastic. Now, I'm just going to get you to clarify for people the difference between a line producer and a production manager, because I think those terms people don't quite understand the difference always.
Yeah, I think line producer was a term that came primarily out of drama, and then as factual sort of bled into drama recon, a lot of people who were doing drama sort of started working in factual and vice versa, and the sort of line producer term sort of became absorbed. And this is my take on it. My version of it is a production manager is very much the money, purely the nuts and bolts, and the kind of cost management. Line producing to me means you're much more across editorial. That's how I've done it. I've always been across script and research as well, and sort of bigger picture stuff. That might be wrong, but I've worked on a lot of productions where I've been the line producer, and I've had a production manager. I think it depends on scale as well. So depending on how much you're running, I mean, I've worked on sort of 10-part series where I've been the line producer, and I've had a production manager working with me who's been very much kind of day-to-day costing and management. And then I've been across sort of the whole series, if you like. But I've also worked on stuff where I've been the producer and I've had a line producer and a production manager. So I think it just depends on what the project is, how factual it is, how much drama there is, and kind of what level of team you need, really. But yeah, my definition is probably line producer sees all of it and the production manager sees sort of more the financial side of it.
Let's start at the very beginning. When do you need a budget?
Good question. So for me, I think as soon as you start asking people for money, or you're going out asking meaningful questions to people in the marketplace for funding, you need to have a sense of what your budget is. You don't necessarily need to have every detail locked down, but I think if you're pitching, say you're pitching a feature doc, an archive feature doc, you need to know kind of roughly what your archive's going to cost. Is it free archive? Is it Olympic coverage archive, which is like the most expensive, archive in the world? Or is it a 3-part nature series, which is going to take you 3 years to shoot? So you do need to have a sense of what that budget is right from the beginning, because otherwise you can't have a meaningful conversation. These days, if you pitch a concept to ABC or Netflix or whoever, they'll go, that's great idea, lovely. Have you got the access? Yes. The next question is going to be, what does it cost? And if you don't know, you look like an idiot and you aren't doing your job, really. So you have to have a sense of at least the big picture.
Some of the programs that I've worked on, and certainly when I pitched to the UK, they worked on, there was basically a price point. So if it was going out at Wednesday at 8:30, it would cost this much. If it was going out at Sunday at 3 p.m, it would cost this much. And you kind of built the program to that price point. What's the situation nowadays?
So I think it used to be the case that people would share that information with you. Obviously kids programming costs less than, prime time. Daytime costs less than prime time. Obviously shiny floor stuff is the kind of the big ticket items. But I think it's not as rigid as it used to be, in the sense that there are set fees or figures, not like it used to be. I think now people are expecting you to come to them with that information as to what your show costs and the value that brings.
So if we're now in the realm of being able to kind of pitch our own price, what kind of prices are we talking about?
Okay, so obviously it depends on your content. It depends on if you're doing live, if you're doing archive, if you're doing international shoots, all that kind of stuff, if you're doing stunts. But say an hour of television can cost anything from, say, $120 to, $250, $300. A series, this is basic, very basic ideas. And a series for SBS, say anything from like 750 to 1.5, it's like 500,000 an ep if it's a big ticket item. Feature docs, roughly, and again, these are all rough figures, depending on what you're doing and what the subject is, but anything from about 1 million, 1.2 up to about 1.8. And there's reasons for that in terms of length of edit. Obviously for a feature doc, you're looking at a much longer edit. You're looking at, with the certain figures that you want to hit because of the tax break, the 40% and all that kind of stuff, which obviously you get back being a feature, which Screen Australia obviously give you a tax break, which is great, which encourages a lot of people here to do feature docs, and why, Australia is known for doing feature docs, because of that amazing tax break that you get. So those are the kinds of figures. They're very rough, but yeah, so that's the kind of figures we're sort of thinking at.
Right. Now, in that case, how much does the creative influence the budget, or the budget influence the creative? Like, which, is this a kind of chicken and egg, which comes first? Or have you had situations where you've had to rein in somebody's creative because of the budget?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, it is a chicken and egg. It's always a case of people sort of say, oh, what will that cost? Just do a top line figure, or just give me a 1-page budget. And it's like, well, you can't really do that until you actually drill into it. But I think, and that to me comes down to relationship. So if you work with a director or a producer or, whoever has the idea and the concept that you can actually really communicate with them, then I think it's a really good starting point that you can actually kind of go back and forth and spitball and sort of work out what they actually need and etc. I mean, we all have ultimately we only have as much money to work with as we get, because that's the reality. The commissioner or a platform will only give you what you get, so that's what you have to work with. But I think, yes, it's always hard to rein in a creative. Even though I think everyone in this industry is creative. Don't think that's just about directors and writers. I think we all have to be creative in our job. But I think the more you can communicate and the more you can show that you are trying to realise that person's vision without curtailing it or being the kind of bean counter in the corner, that will obviously stand you in better stead. I've had numerous times when I've had to say to a director, I'm really sorry, we just can't do that. And some respond better than others. Some DOPs respond better than others. I've had a DOP throw a camera at me once, which I caught actually, because I was like, oh, insurance, shit. And directors that have strops, because I actually think, and this is cone of silence, even though I know this is going out on the interwebs, I think the more creative that person is, the more responsive they are, and the less creative that person is, the less able they are to adapt. And I've worked with some amazing directors who I've just had to say, look, I'm so sorry. I would love to be able to do that, but it's either going to be the drone or it's going to be this stunt, and we can't do both. But you work it through, and you talk and you communicate. But I think I'm always upfront with people, and I'm never trying to kind of just squirrel money away. And I think that comes through because people realise that. And I've always been very transparent in the sense that if there's any money left at the end and we have time to then go back and do that stunt that we have to put on hold, then we'll do it. But so I think it's a case of you don't score points by, squirreling money away. You just make enemies. And I think the more you can kind of communicate with people and work together, then the better it'll be. And that's how we all get work, because you all want to work with people that actually want to put the value on the screen, and always save money for the rat party. I think that's my tip. Yeah.
Can you tell me about a time when you've had to really work creatively because your budget's being cut?
Yeah, there's been a few. One particularly comical one was we were doing this is for Discovery. This is about 15 years ago, back in the height of the drama recon days, when everyone was doing drama recon like it was the best thing ever, and it wasn't. But anyway, so we did, back in the day, Kublai Khan invaded Japan, apparently. Took a big fleet of ships and they sank off the coast of Japan because they weren't seafarers, they were horse riders, and it didn't go terribly well. But it was a great story. And they were very sick and they crashed, and there was an amazing dive site in Japan that we filmed at, and this Japanese dive team were bringing up these kind of relics from the fleet. It was amazing, and then reconstructing all this stuff. So we filmed that was great. Had an amazing time in Japan. And then we had this fantastic drama shoot set up to go and film in one of the big studios in China, which I was super excited about, because I was like, this is where they film these kind of amazing, epic Chinese drama films. And excuse me. And it was all going ahead, and we had a fixer lined up, and we had everything planned with the budget. And then our local broadcaster pulled out. They didn't have the money. So we had the Discovery money, but we didn't have the local broadcaster. But we didn't want to go back to Discovery and say, look, we've kind of lost the co-pro deal, because that was awkward, and we were going to try and find some other money, but we had to keep going. I think we had a distributor, but that was it. But there was a massive gap in the budget. So having shot the Japanese stuff, we still had all this drama recon to do. And so we went from shooting for 2 weeks in China to what on earth are we going to do? So this is when I was based in London. Director had a complete flip out. He was just obviously, you know, off kind of in the corner, you know, weeping. So I was like, right, what can we do? So I found a sort of historical boat society, and this complete crazy guy who, you know, used to be a sailor and a captain and all this kind of stuff. And obviously, as you do, you start talking, you get on the phone, you go, right, okay, what are we doing with it? And he said, oh, there's a replica junk being restored in Norfolk. I was like, right, okay. So, and I was like, okay, is it the right era? He said, oh, yeah, it's 12th century. And I was like, right, okay, bizarrely. He said, but it's completely like there's, you know, half one side of it's basically been bashed in and it's, you know, in a really bad state. So it's a real shame that you won't be able to film on it. And I was like, you say that. So I managed to get a hold of this kind of crusty old sea dog in Norfolk. And I was, hello, I'm Charlotte. I'm ringing from whatever production company, just wondering if you'd ever be interested in us, you know, filming on your junk. And this guy was like, you know, are you a prank caller kind of thing? As we ended up, basically, I said, if I can throw some money at you, he said, this is like a 6-month restoration project. And I said, well, can you do it in 6 weeks? If I give you 15 grand, can you throw a load of money at it? And then can you sail it from Norfolk to Scotland, where we've managed to find a location that looks vaguely like the coast of Japan, because it was all rocky and we'd had some, anyway, that was a bit random. So he was like, well, okay, I'll bring you back. And he spoke to all his mates, you know, people who fix boats. And he said, all right, I can do it in 8 weeks. And I said, okay, 8 weeks, but 6 weeks would be better. And he's like, all right, see what I can do. So in 8 weeks, we restored, I say we, I didn't do it, restored this boat. And we managed to find a lot of Chinese extras in the north of England, minibus them to Scotland. They were really chuffed about that. And then hire lots and lots of Mongolian armor, get some horses. And then there was an amazing day where the sun came out, and all of a sudden the whole of this little sea town in Scotland were on the pier and on the jetties as this Mongolian junk sailed in under sail, turned the engines off, under sail, came into this thing, and everyone was just like, what the actual fuck? It was brilliant. And I'm like, yeah, okay, just park that there, moor it, whatever, park. And then for I think 5 days, we filmed reconstructions of fight scenes, and it was amazing. But it cost us about, I would say, 1/8 of the cost that it would have cost us to go to China, because that's all we had. And nobody was any the wiser. And it was all shot quite tight. And we had lots of very, very unfortunate Chinese students vomiting over the side of the boat because they were all seasick, and they're all green, and they're supposed to be these gnarly, really, really fierce warriors, and they're all like, and we're like, it's all right, it's fine, carry on. And it was amazing. So that was, you know, so they say that people in production management and line producing aren't creative. Well, I beg to differ. So yes. So that was a very long story, but that was very funny, and we pulled it off, and nobody knew. And then the boat managed to then they put the boat into a ship museum, and the restoration society made a load of money off it, and everyone was happy. Yeah, except my director, but that's all right, it's fine.
That is the best story for managing a hole in the budget creatively. That is just fantastic. I'm sort of distracted now because all I can see is this little village in Scotland with a whole crazy TV crew arriving to shoot something random. However, on with budgeting. So if I'm now starting to write my budget, I've kind of negotiated with the director about the things that they want and how to tell the story. How do I find out how much things cost? Is it written down somewhere? If I'm doing this kind of for the first time, maybe I'm doing it for like a YouTube video or like like working, yeah, where do I find out how much things cost?
There's various resources. MIA has a really good rate card, which is really helpful. So I think they're mia.org.au. I'll check my notes. Yeah, no, mia.org, which is great. And they list everyone by sort of genre, by category. So you can sort of everything from a drone op to a, grip to a makeup assistant to a daily, all that kind of stuff. And that's great. And they have, I think it's done by sort of 10-hour day. So you can sort of work out, or 50-hour week, whatever, and you can do all that kind of stuff. And so that's a really good resource. The other good one is cinematographer.org.au, and they've got a really good rate card. And again, they list every single kind of variable within the camera department and lighting department and grip department, and that's a good one too. The other thing is just ask people what their rate is, because most people have a standard rate, and they're not, people know what they charge and they know what their kit costs, and so if you're not sure and you want to find out, just ring someone. They'll say, this is my daily rate, this is my travel rate, this is my, prep rate, this is my weekly. And everyone pretty much works on a standard rate. Things in Melbourne cost slightly less than Sydney, things in Adelaide possibly cost less than Melbourne, and then obviously you've got different rates all over the world. Drama costs more than factual, commercial costs more than drama, mostly. So there's kind of set rates, but depending, once you know what you're kind of trying to do, then either go to the rate cards or ask people.
What about for people who are doing kind of maybe their first piece of content? Maybe they're kind of wanting to create a little catalogue of work on YouTube so that they can establish themselves as a scriptwriter or a director or something like that, and they've only got a really small budget. How is it appropriate, or how do you approach those conversations with people if you've only got a really tiny budget?
Be honest. Just be honest. I mean, don't take the piss. And don't expect professionals to give up a day's paid work for your kind of pet project, I think. There are lots of good Facebook groups and people that will kind of help out. But bearing in mind, if you're asking someone to do something, then, and they're turning down commercial work, then you have to kind of work around them. Don't expect them to sort of fit to your schedule. I think most people within the industry are willing to help because we've all been a junior at some point, and, and a lot of us do mentoring and a lot of us do helping people and do, I've done loads of budgets for free for people just giving people advice. But I think it's the way you ask and how you ask and when you ask. So don't expect a DOP to give up a commercial, for you to do your student film. But if you say to them, look, I've got this is an opportunity for me, and I'll come and do some work for you for free, that might be the way to do it. So go and assist them. Don't just ask for something, give something in return, I would say. And, because if you're expecting, or I don't know, if you're expecting an editor to do a day's work for you, then what can you do for them in return? How can you help them? What favor can you do for them? And that's how you build relationships in the industry, I think.
Yeah, I think it absolutely is. And you're right in saying that most experienced people will help out where they can, because you're right, we've all been there. Now, I'm going through my budget. I've got this thing, it's called a contingency. Do I need one? How much should it be?
Definitely. Always have a contingency, because you never know. And for some broadcasters, you have to have one, but by contract, they will insist on one. They will probably insist on the percentage of contingency you have to have as well. So they'll tell you that, because they've all been burned and they've all, people fuck up and, things happen. But it's just good sense. It's like you can't predict everything. Like, who knew coronavirus was going to come along and fuck everything up? Hey. So we're all writing contingency plans about corona because suddenly we're all pandemic experts. Yay! So you have to have a contingency because stuff always happens. People get sick. People have accidents. People, not through anyone's fault. It just happens. And sometimes, you need more archive than you thought you were going to need, or you need to do a pickup shoot, or you know, or you need to do graphics, or the commissioner actually doesn't know what they're talking about and they keep asking for things and expecting you to cover it. You know, it's, so yes, have a contingency for you. Normally, if you come in under budget, this was certainly the case with a lot of co-productions I did in the UK, that contingency, if there's anything left, is shared 50-50 between you and the commissioner. So say you've got, you know, 10 grand left, you get 5 grand each, you know, and that's, you know, a little bit of bonus at the end. There's not normally anything left because you find ways of spending it, but depending on what your relationship is, you might want to keep a little bit back. But yeah, it's just common sense to have it. Obviously, you know, you build fat, everyone calls it fat, into the lines of the budget, but it's very useful and often, like I say, contractually obliged to have one.
What percentage of the budget should my contingency be?
I would say 5%. Some people insist on 10. But again, I think it depends on what you're doing. So if you're doing something with a lot of risk, a lot of international filming, for example, you might want slightly more. If you're doing a very straightforward domestic, you know, local sort of shoot and a very straightforward edit, then you might only need 5%. If you're doing something that has stunts, has, you know, your mountain climbing or your kayaking or your whatever, then you might want a bit more. It depends what the project is. But yeah, I think it's definitely sensible to have it. And the other thing is just build. Yeah, well, I mean, this is a separate point, but if you're filming overseas and you've got a lot of currency exchange, then you build contingency into that as well, because, you know, as we can see right now, the currency market is all over the place. You never know what's going to happen. So you have to have contingency in there as well for exchange rate fluctuations.
Great. And finally, there is a lot of talk. People always talk about the Screen Australia A to Z budget. What is it? Should I be scared of it? And how do I learn how to use it?
You shouldn't be scared of it. You should treat it with the contempt it deserves, because it's vile. However, you have to use it. It's what they want you to use. So suck it up, get used to it, get your head around it. The quicker you do that, and the sooner you do that, the better, because it's a tool that is in your arsenal, not theirs. It's like all budgets. Once you get to know them, and the better you are at them, the better you can manipulate them, and the better you control your finances and your projects. So, I mean, I grew up using Excel and Movie Magic. Movie Magic is my favourite tool. I think the A to Z budget is cumbersome and unnecessary in some instances, but that's what you have to use. So you just have to accept it. There's a lot of stuff in there that won't apply to your project because they put a lot of stuff in there for every variable. So it's like a catch-all. So ultimately, yeah, practice, play with it, get used to it. And I think for anyone coming up, even if you haven't got a project, you know, and like right now, if you're bored, which a lot of people are, unless you've got kids, and they're driving you nuts. But if you're not, and you are bored and you want to ignore the kids, imagine you're doing a 3-part series and go, okay, how would I do that in a budget? Or, okay, I've got a feature documentary about space. Let's do that. Let's go to the moon. Okay. How would I do that? How would I cost that? Get your A to Z budget out and just do a scenario, do a schedule, map out your edit, map out your work backwards. Okay, my final finishing is here. My edit's going to take 16 weeks or whatever it is, you know, and then I'm going to have 10 weeks filming over here, over there. I'm going to go, you know, to the moon twice or whatever it is. Here's my team. And just budget it as an exercise. And the more you do it, the easier it will become. And then when someone says to you flippantly, oh, just do me a 1-page or do me a top line budget, you'll be so used to doing it that you'll go, okay, I know that I need to plug in the above the line is this. I need this much for script and story. And then I need my director for this long, my producers for this long. I need a field producer. I need an editor. I need a researcher and an archive researcher and a post supervisor. And then I've got 3 shoots overseas. I've got 1 shoot locally. Here's my office costs. And bang, you're done. And the other good thing is once you've done it once, you obviously save everything you've ever done. And then you reformat and you go forward. And yes, you slightly tweak. But once you've filled it out once, you have your feature doc budgets, your series budgets, your one-off budgets, you can kind of adapt them because it ain't that hard. Like, they're not, things aren't that dissimilar. So yes, you've got, you know, different type of filming, or you've got, you know, 3 actors on this one, and you've got, like, you know, an animation on this one. But essentially the core structure is the same. You've got, you know, director, producer, editor, and then other people, and then just go from there and just play with it and, you know, get used to it.
Awesome. Now, are there any online resources that teach people how to do any of this stuff, or any courses that you know of?
I know that Afters do a really good course. They do a short course on budgeting, which is really good. And also the Production Guild, which is a UK resource. But they also have on there, they also have different budgets. And then also just in terms of budgeting on YouTube, there's tons and tons of really good videos on YouTube about putting budgets together, about how to use Movie Magic if you want to do a drama budget or commercial budget. So yeah, there's resources out there that you can just go and find.
Brilliant. Okay, that is Budgeting 101. I will put links to all the resources that Charlie's mentioned down below on the comments. And other than that, thank you so much, Charlie. See ya.
Thank you very much. See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.